Random House Audio presents The Crazyladies of Pearl Street by Trevanian. Read for you by Tom Bosely. My sister, my mother, and I sat in a row on the front stoop of 238 North Pearl Street, feeling overwhelmed and diminished by the unfamiliar bustle of the big city. Beside the stoop was a stack of twine-bound cardboard boxes bulging with bedding, clothing, and kitchen things. Around them were our few scraps of furniture, looking scuffed and shabby in the unforgiving glare of daylight. It was St. Patrick's Day, 1936. I was 6 years old, my sister was 3, my mother was 27, and we were beginning a new life. We'd been sitting on that stoop long enough for the gritty brownstone to mottle the backs of my legs between my short pants and my knee-high stockings. My sister wore a starched, frilly dress that Mother had bought out of the money meant to tide us over until we got on our feet. She wanted Anne-Marie to look pretty the first time her father saw her, but the dress had got crushed during the long drive with the three of us crammed into half of the front seat of my uncle's truck. Now we sat hip to hip, Mother in the middle, my sister and I drawing comfort from contact with her, while she drew a maternal strength and determination from contact with us. Mother looked anxiously up and down the street for my father, whom she hadn't seen for 4 years, not since the morning he went out to look for work, and didn't come back. She didn't hear from him again until a letter arrived just 3 days earlier saying how sorry he was for running away from the family he loved. He'd been sure that her family would give us a hand once he was out of the picture. He knew that Mother's father considered him to be little better than a flashy hustler and a con man, exactly what he was, in fact. He had found a job and apartment in Albany, and he had something big in the works. That letter had come in the nick of time, because the owner of Lake George Village's only all-year restaurant had just told my mother that he wouldn't be needing her as a waitress when the tourist season began. Her frequent absences during the winter when she was sick with lung trouble had shown him that she was unreliable. During the whole trip down to Albany, my uncle had grumbled about the time and money that this was costing him. When we didn't find my father waiting at the address he had given us, he just unloaded our stuff in grumpy haste and left us there. He was in such a hurry to get away that he drove off without shutting the passenger side door, which flopped open. As he reached over to shut it, he stepped on the brakes, causing the door to pinch his hand. He drove off, pounding his good fist on the steering wheel, glad to see the end of his wife's goddamn freeloading cousin and her goddamn brats. Mother and I exchanged glances and couldn't help smiling. My father's letter had said that we should wait for him on the steps of the building because he was planning a big surprise for us. But Mother was tired of sitting there with people peering at us from windows and stoops all around. She rose to go inside and look for him, but I grabbed her wrist. Like most kids, I love surprises, and I didn't want her to ruin this one. Let's just wait a little longer. A couple of boys detached themselves from a knot of kids and sauntered past our stoop, disdainfully eyeing our cardboard boxes and our shoddy furniture, then letting their sassy eyes slide over me. From school, I was familiar with those universal rituals among boys when they puppy-sniff one another for the first time, measuring and hefting for rank and dominance. I could tell that the smaller of the two boys, a big-eared kid about a year older than I, was wondering if this skinny new kid would turn out to be a regular guy or a sissy. I kept my eyes on him as he strolled by, but I held him in a soft, tired look. To look hard-eyed would be to send a challenge. To avoid his eyes would be to submit. Some bigger boys, 14 or 15 years old, loitered in front of a corner store diagonally across the street from our stoop. Fully aware of the gaggle of girls who admired them from 2 stoops away, and whom they ostentatiously ignored, the boys talked loudly, pushed one another in gruff play, snorted out forced laughter, and repeatedly glanced at their reflections in the corner store window with satisfaction. Two of the boys were smoking, the biggest one, who was the leader, and a small, ugly one who played the role of flunky and clown. They smoked like kids new to smoking do, trying to appear supremely casual, but fussily examining the burning ends of the cigarettes with grave frowns and tapping off the ash more frequently than it could gather. These older boys wore long trousers and were bareheaded, while the younger boys of the block were in knickerbockers and caps. Only very young boys wore short pants, except for me, of course. The principal bane of my life was my mother's need to dress my sister and me better than other kids, in compensation, I suppose, for our lack of a father and a secure breadwinner. The strange new sounds and gestures of life that I observed that first afternoon would, in the course of 8.5 years I was to live on North Pearl Street, become the ambience of my block, with its noise, its squalor, its childhood rites and ordeals, the awkward rutting rituals of its adolescence, and its shoals of dirty brats with runny noses, nits and impetigo, playing their screaming games of kick-the-can or stickball, sassing icemen and pushcart vendors, blocking traffic and exchanging insults with truck drivers who wanted to get through. North Pearl Street was a typical slum of the first half of what would be called the American century. These slum blocks were identical in their essence and social effects, varying only in the cultural decoration of their ethnic concentrations. Pearl Street was Irish, more precisely, it was bog Irish. Pearl Street was the sort of place that appeared in films starring the dead-end kids, sassy-mouthed but essentially good boys, who only needed one of Hollywood's grittier stars to sort them out and make honest, hard-working citizens of them. But the violent, reality-calloused kids of North Pearl would have scoffed at the efforts of a Riley-knowing Father Spencer Tracy to save them by opening a boys' club and showing them that priests could be regular fellas. While we were sitting on the stoop anticipating the surprise my father had prepared for us, the front door of a building across the street flew open, and out poured a shrieking pack of children belonging to what we would come to know as the Meehans, a wild, drunken, dim-witted tribe that inhabited 3 contiguous houses on the east side of the street. All the Meehans were related in complex and unnatural ways. The 4 old Meehans, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, had produced 6 loud, dirty, boozy Meehan adults, and random transient matings between and among the second generation of brothers, sisters, cousins, and their parents had spawned some 20 offspring who combined among themselves and with the earlier generations to produce a scattering of son, nephew, uncle, cousin, grandsons, and daughter, niece, aunt, cousin, granddaughters. Ironically, the one called Mrs. Meehan was the only woman of that tribe who was not related to the rest of the adults by blood. One of the Meehan men had been put into an institution for the dim-witted for a while, and he returned with a woman he had found there. It was she who did most of the tribe's cooking, cared for the younger children, and did such cleaning as took place in their warren, mostly scattering the litter around by batting at it with a ratty broom. This Mrs. Meehan was the epicenter of the consternation and wailing that erupted through their front door and poured down the stoop. She was clutching a smoking iron skillet, and the kids surrounding her were screaming, "Drop it, Ma, drop it!" The skillet handle was burning her hand, but still she clung to it, whimpering. Just as my mother was rising to dash across the street to help the poor woman, old Joe Meehan, the doyen of the clan, appeared at the doorway. He had obviously just pulled on his tatty, low-crotched trousers because the flies were agape, and he was still thumbing his suspenders up over his bare chest and tufted shoulders. "Jesus, Mary and Joseph," he complained as he swatted his way through the swarm of kids. He kicked the skillet out of Mrs. Meehan's hand, and she screamed as some of her skin went with it. Clutching her wrist as though to pinch off the pain, she dossed.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?